Now we must make our way to Horseshoe Bay for episode 3. I believe that's episode 3, and it's my favorite so far.
It was a really good episode.
It was really good, and it has to do with its structure. Like, they were genius at giving us a mystery in the forefront, and then having that mystery give us the answers for what happened with Nick. That was just really, 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 really good. I love it so much.
Yeah, it definitely paid tribute to the whole Nancy Drew element of the show, because this show is very like Riverdale in that it's aesthetically different to what you would expect a Nancy Drew show to be, just like Riverdale was aesthetically different to what you would expect an Archie comic show to be. But this episode was so Nancy Drew, and that it had an incredibly complex mystery that kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. And yet it wasn't just like a saga of the week. It really gave answers to the overarching story as far as Nick goes, and what his motivations were and whether he did kill her or not. And it was really nice to see like that, how it developed his relationship with Mrs. Hudson, and that it wasn't what you thought. And Nancy also had her own stakes in it as well, because you were like, is she going to turn on him? Would she turn on him? And we also now knows Nancy. I said that after 3 episodes. And you knew she wouldn't do that, but it was an interesting through line for the episode. I really liked this episode, and I have to say just the aesthetic as well, with like the storm, just the ghost showing up in the claw. This feels like where the supernatural territories really started, and if this is what it's like, I'm really excited to see it going forward.
I know the one shot, I think it's for the end, not to jump too far ahead, but when her dad's walking up the stairs and he feels the water on his sleeve, and he looks up and we see the ghost spirit girl from The Ring, whatever she is, and then when he looks up and she's not there, I love those moments of the show. And just the score of the show, the music is really good. It reminds me of Once Upon a Time a little bit, so it's got that like I don't want to say spooky, because Once Upon a Time wasn't spooky, but it has that like, it's kind of chilling and like fantasy, and it just works so well with this show. And it was really complicated getting those answers about Nick and what happened, and them all kind of like dealing with like, how do we feel about this? I wasn't even sure. I was like, this is really weird. Let me sit with this for a second. Like, he didn't mean it. So I was like, whew, it's a lot. It was a lot to process. But I liked Nancy's reaction a lot.
I did too. I think the way that they seeded each answer made you become more like soft. Like, if you were someone who was like, I don't trust Nick, each step allows for a softening towards him, to see how much he was just failed, but also his guilt, because like, you're talking about a situation in which he was protecting a friend because she was being harassed, and it went too far. It went past what he had meant it to be, and someone died. And so like, how do you even, because you're not going to regret helping your friend, but you are going to regret if someone lost their life. The guilt that you have to go through, then the anger over what Tiffany did, because she hadn't even seen everything. She didn't know what happened. She can only tell you what she saw from I guess she was from the street. And from her perspective, she just saw a boy get tossed from, was it 2 stories? So that is just, I don't know. I felt for Nick. And I felt for everybody trying to wrestle with that themselves. And then how bad Nancy felt about it. By the way, they're the sweetest. I'm really going to miss Nick and Nancy when they pivot to Nace. And I say that because I'm really endeared. Then he's a lot like her.
I know, it's confusing to me to know that it's not going to last, because I'm like, I want to know what goes wrong, or like, does the chemistry dry up? Do they kind of be like, oh, this isn't romantic anymore? I don't know. I'm just like so invested in this relationship, the temporary relationship, considering that, like, you guys know I'm not like a ship person. Like, I don't watch shows for ships, but for some reason, knowing that Nancy and Ace is going to happen, it's like all I can think about in every scene. So when Ace texts Nancy for help and Nick kind of has like a jealous moment, I was like, 3 episodes in, we're jealous.
And
Like I didn't know Ace was a threat yet.
Right, yeah. And we did
Yeah.
say last week that were they planning it from the start all along, or is this one of those situations where you see how popular something is with the fans, so you try to test it out? But no, that moment felt very, very like it was building towards that long game, because Nick was kind of jealous. He had that moment where he was like, no, it's not okay that you leave, but obviously go, kind of reaction. And the fact that like Ace reached out to Nancy of all people, and like again just highlighting how wonderful or adorable a character Ace is, that he didn't want to embarrass Bess, so he reached out to Nancy so that she could do it on his behalf. It was a really, really moving moment, and I do think that'll play into it, because it feels like of all the characters, Ace was one of the easiest ones to get attached to, even though he still has that secret. We don't know about that yet, but he was one of the easier ones to get attached to, and I do think that'll like this moment will really compliment him, because it feels like it's really building towards a nice friendship between him and Bess, and I can't wait to see how that develops as well.
Same. I will say I'm actually not attached to Ace yet.
Really?
Like I am really deep in the trenches for Nancy, of course, and Nick. I'm also really warming up to George. I like Ace and Bess's friendship. Like I'm invested to see how that blossoms because it seems very sweet. But Nick and Nancy are my favorites. And I don't know if I am coming into this with some knowledge about Nancy Drew, not necessarily not the show, but the how Nick and Nancy actually are canon in the books and the games. And so it's I'm like, oh, but I want them. I've always liked them in the games, because you would like call Nick and he would give her some advice, or like, but I will say, I wonder if they're seeding things, because there are games where you call Nick and George is always there. And I'm like, girl, isn't that Nancy's boyfriend? Girl, why are you always there? So perhaps they were doing stuff like that. I think I might like Nace. Yeah, I think I might like Nace when it happens, but I'm gonna be a little hurt. I'm not gonna lie.
I think that's a sign of a good show, because
Yeah.
you're attached to Nick and Nancy already.
Yeah, I like them a lot. It's gonna be tough to watch it fall apart, question mark, if it does fall apart. But I don't know. I really love Ace. I love Nick a lot. I like all the characters, but Ace is the kind of character that I'm always really drawn to and like love. He reminds me of like the Brandon Walsh, even though Brandon wasn't really a slacker, but like just that guy with like the heart of gold. He's got a little dopey a little bit. I know, I love those characters so much.
And he's got a secret that we still have to unveil too. I wonder how that's going to go down with the crew and why he's working with. I actually don't know the rank of that police officer that just does not care for Nancy. But he, like those two are paired for some reason. I'm like, Ace, what happened? Because I know he got something on you.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do? What was done to you? Who are you covering for somebody? Like that's the Ace mystery that I'm interested in.
I wonder if Nancy will be the one to help him out of that, because since she has such like a connection to that police officer as well, maybe it'll be up to her to help him out.
I'm sure she will, because she can't mind her business.
No, she can't.
If her life depended on it. And for as good as she is at like sleuthing, how did she leave her white shoes stained with red wine in her house? She's messy.
Yeah. I was going to say that. There were 3 episodes in, and she's now 0-3 with getting caught. She let her monkey hat get left behind on the branches in the first episode when she was in Ryan's house. She was arrested at the morgue in episode 2, and now she's left her footprints behind all in the inn in episode 3. So like, is the father going to find out she's up to something else in episode 4?
Oh,
she's
surely.
so rusty for sure.
She's
I love
learning.
that he like knew his child.
Right. He knew it would be her.
I like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, let's give Nancy the benefit of the doubt. And she was like, she probably didn't think that her dad would figure that situation out. But it's still like, if you see red wine on your shoe, put it in the wash.
Well, also, why were you in white shoes in the first place, girl? It was a storm.
Right. They were really cute, though. They were cute.
They were
nice.
Fun. Yeah, they were. Oh, but I do love when they give her like a moment where she outsmarts someone. So like when they got their friends to get into her car, so that so I don't remember that other police officer's name either. But like when she thought that she was about to catch Nick and Nancy, and it's like, oh no, It's Ace and Bess. And then like there's Nancy driving away all smirky as we go to the Lilac Inn. That was
That's
great.
Nancy's like one win for the week. But I do want to talk
Yes.
about Bess, because when she goes to Bess's van, I guess
Mhm.
that's what we'll call it, she discovers the ring. And now she's like, oh, maybe Bess is the killer. That's not exactly where my mind goes to, because I think I don't think Bess would hurt a fly. But I do see her finding a ring and stealing it to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when she needs the money. Yeah, but it was a great, again, I just love Nancy's narration and the voiceover and the whole "have I invited a murderer to stay with me?" That was a great hook, because the cliffhanger itself wasn't as much of a jaw dropper considering what we know about Bess. So that was a great hook. And I think Nancy's voiceover is just wonderful. And I don't really like narration. So that's great. But I hope we get to see more of the Nancy and Bess dynamic develop, because of course they all have their own like there's 5 of them now. This dynamic between the 5 of them is great, but a lot of the one-on-one dynamics haven't been explored yet, and I feel like Nancy and Bess is one of them. So I can't wait to see. I hope that's kind of the basis of the next episode.
I hope she's not. She's not going to address the ring directly. I mean, we know Nancy too well by now, but I want to know how she got the ring, because did Bess even go outside the night that Tiffany died?
I think they all did. Like when Nancy said, like called for help or something, I think they all exited the restaurant. So she might have just swiped it real quick from the side if she saw it glinting in the street light.
Not very smart though, because like you can't pawn a ring when it's part of a murder investigation.
I know, but I think Bess is a lot like Ace, where she's like, it's like great idea, but you need to think it all the way through first. I did like Kennedy's face when she saw like when Nancy noticed, because her face was like, of course, I cannot trust anyone.
Yeah, no peace for Nancy.
No, she just got settled about Nick, and then here we go with Bess. Oh, speaking of the Nick and him telling everybody, I really like the sun coming through as that like burden was lifted from him. That was a really nice detail.
I really love that.
Yeah, like his internal storm had been lifted as well. It definitely felt like the ghosts were preying upon all the conflict. So when some of that had been resolved, the day got better. I just love that episode. The fact that the storm had such a presence in it. These shows need those kinds of like environments, and that just it played into it beautifully.
Yeah. Oh, and George needs to go talk to her mom or somebody, whoever is, I forget who she said is in her life that knows about all this stuff. Like, girl, you got harpoons and like every other thing trying to take you out in your own restaurant.
That ghost lady?
Yeah.
George, you're in danger, girl.
I know. She's like, I don't believe in it. I was like, I really need you to, because it's dangerous out here for you.
I think they do, from what I remember. They do explore that in George's personal life. Not to give any spoilers for my 7 episodes of knowledge. But I do want to praise, I know you just praised Kennedy, and I want to praise her acting, because every time I just love watching her, because she's a very intentional actor. You can tell that she's thinking as her character. She's not just saying the lines and performing. She's fully in it. And anytime she's reacting to what the other person is saying, you can tell. I think, Sabrina, you said this last week, that the gears are moving, like as Nancy, like she's thinking, and she's not just Nancy, but Kennedy's putting things in her mind too. And I really love watching her act, because it's very intentional and not in like a, you can tell that she's acting way. Like the choices that she makes in this scene have a reason. Like she gets this character, she is that character, and she can act with intention. And I really like that. Not to say that everybody else doesn't do that on the show, but just to single out her performance so far in these episodes as the title character of the show too. It's really awesome to watch.
And I think that's why the narration works so well, because it always reflects what's very much so on her face. And she always like gives you exactly what's on Nancy's mind, regardless of whether there's dialogue or not in the scene. Of course, she's acting in silence, but the voiceover works so well with the expressions on her face. The performance is great. And I feel like for being such a main character in almost every scene and having to have, like, I don't want to say multiple different personalities, but Nancy she's been a lot all over the place, a lot with her emotions over the last couple of episodes, and you can definitely feel every single one of those performances. And I know we talked about it a minute ago, but Nancy's reaction to when Nick opened up, that was, I couldn't take my eyes away from her. It was just the way she reacted to his revelation. It was beautiful.
Yeah, the tears that were like gathering and the sadness that was coming onto her face the more he was telling the story, how emotionally connected she is to basically everyone once they tell her what happened. Kennedy's so good. I mean, she's the lead. You would expect her to be so good, but like she just truly is, like, every dynamic that she has with the other actors and characters is just so on point for where we are in the story. And we're only 3 episodes in, and the way that this cast works, it really feels like we're immersed in this story much faster than you typically get in television. Usually there's a few characters or dynamics that work, and other ones, we're filling it out until about the mid-season, if not the end of the season. But with this show, I just feel like we're in her shoe bay. I feel like I'm peering into their lives, and it's really, really great. I love all the different personalities, how they clash, how they mesh, and that there's clearly a lot of story that we need to get to, and we're not going to rush through it, but we're also not going to take a snail's pace.
They've paced it so wisely where there's no like clunky, like, oh, we need to have one-on-ones with these characters and make it feel awkward so they can become friends. It's like they're all just like immediately immersed in their world together, and there's no other option than to be together and to do this and do it together. And I think that's really smart, even 3 episodes in, to feel like the world is built. We're not world building, we're in the world.
Yeah. And I think as far as pacing goes, that's why I'm enjoying the show so much. The first episode very much prioritized the Lucy and the Tiffany stories as though they were villain of the week or like episode of the week kind of story. And then in episode 2, it kind of like wrapped that up in a way that it's not finished, but it's dealt with for now. And then in this 3rd episode, of course, the Tiffany stuff was still at the forefront of it, but you still had the Lucy stuff in the background looming over it. And it's becoming increasingly clear that it's not just going to be wrapped up in 1 episode or 5 episodes. They're doing a great job of stretching us out and yet still telling the story at the same time. The pacing has been incredible, and I can't wait to see how it plays out, but I'm also really enjoying the journey of watching it play out. I'm not getting impatient with the way they're doing it, if that makes sense.
As we wrap up the Nancy segment, I think Sabrina will appreciate this reference. A certain show that's a reboot that just premiered should maybe take a little notes from Nancy. Pretty Little Liars.
Yes, I mean, not to get into the Pretty Little Liars original sin, I don't like it. Like, it just like my review says that. I think I called it YA thriller by numbers because it's just the pacing's not great.
I mean, I don't love comparing shows because every show is on their own journey, but like we're 3 episodes into both shows, and I'm like, here's an example of how you pace a show, and here's an example of where maybe we don't need to be taking our time.
And they have a quartet too. Oh, is it a quintet? They're a quintet. Yeah, we still same amount of main players, better pacing on the CW one, and they have less time to tell their story.
This is true.
But Pretty Little Liars Original Sin is on HBO Max. If you have not watched it and you would like to see what this spinoff is, you can definitely do that and perhaps enjoy it. The internet is loving it. Me, Crystal, and Aisha at Fanside Entertainment are just like, we're here. We'll be here to the end of the season, but we're not here with Glee.
Tell it like it is.
I mean, there's no other way to do it.
Right.
Exactly.